see if this goes like this. I'm live. I am live, and hopefully my audio, video, and shit are working here. I'm in the kitchen. Do I? I don't know if I usually do stuff in the kitchen. Uh, I feel like the angle of the camera is fucked up. I'm supposed to look this way. I'm supposed to look that way. I don't fucking know. I never know where to look. I'm not a TV personality. I'm not a camera person. I'm not an on-camera personality. But I'm a heavy hauler and a lyrical baller. Oh, that's a good shot of the ceiling. Maybe using my son's computer as a camera stand isn't the best idea. So, good morning. Well, L Truck is going live this morning because yesterday I had a long day. It was a long day, busy day. Got a lot done. We hauled for a new customer yesterday. It actually went quite well, I thought. And the customer seemed really happy with what we did, so that was good. Kind of work I've done before in my life, but not something I've done for my new employer yet. So had a lot of problems yesterday. The roads are brined with this urea-based stuff around here, and my boss says, and I don't think he's wrong, that it's causing additional corrosion on some of the electronic components in our vehicles. So yesterday I had a trailer that was intermittently causing issues. Couldn't find it. So I had lights that weren't working properly, and did field repairs to the point that I could get it working, and I delivered it to the shop last night. Coming in not on literal fuel fumes, but coming in on fumes for my energy level. And yeah, I was supposed to like stay hooked up to the same trailer, go to another job this morning, but that job had to get changed. So now I'm doing another job this morning, and after a long day yesterday, I didn't get home till after 9 o'clock last night. So it was really, really nice to have a morning where I didn't have to get out the door super early. Not maybe good for my pocketbook, but I've got work to do this morning, and I'm looking forward to getting out there. So I guess I think I see people saying hello, Jason, and I always forget whether it's Jacoby or Jacoby, or Jacoby. But Jason will let us know. Good morning. Good morning. I already drank my first coffee this morning. And I told my wife forgot her coffee. I made her one. She forgot to take it with her. And she texted me to tell me that when I texted her about some other just basic family business. I'm like, don't forget, we got to deal with this. And she's like, I forgot my coffee with a sad face emoji. It's the first one, Jason Jacoby. Just Kobe. We'll just call you Jacoby. All right. All right, Jason, it's good to see you. I feel like I didn't see you for like months, and then all of a sudden I saw you again. But honestly, for the last part of the year, I was so busy. I was listening to people, but I wasn't participating in chats too much. And yeah, there's a lot of crazy shit going on. And I started Jacoby. Jacoby. All right, I got it. It's important that we know how to pronounce Jason's surname, which may or may not even be his real surname. Like I don't know. I don't even care. You don't need to dox yourself. I'm Al Trucker, and I'm sure no new people are here, but you never know. People come on. The largest audience I ever had was over 1,000 people watched me try to change the pinion seal on the rear end of my truck. Not my work truck, even, like just my personal truck, which is a little Chevy Colorado. And I know why this is, because I've scrolled through these things. They have these like live things. I think it's a little bit more like a TikTok, and I've scrolled through them, and I've seen somebody doing something, and I stop and I'm like, what the fuck is this person doing? Trucker isn't just my surname; it's also my vocation. Yeah, no, Trucker's not my real name. And one, actually, I realized there's a few things that have truck in them that I really enjoy. And I may be mispronouncing this too, but the Tedeschi Trucks band, I really love their music. And I believe that I'd heard of them before, but I wasn't super familiar with them. And YouTube algorithms and whatnot have played their videos into my stream, and so I become more and more aware of them. I think the train's going by. I think trains going by. I don't want to dox myself, but I do live very close to a rail line, which narrows it down to somewhere in North America, south of the tree line. Um, so I came on this morning largely because I have the time off, and I know that when I come on in the morning, I'm up against some of the big players in our community, and I really just wanted to I really just wanted to do this. Now, did I actually? I didn't do this right. I didn't. I made a comment and Um, I didn't post it, but maybe it'll post now. There we go. There we go. I was trying to make this the first comment before I went live, and I didn't press the button. Usually, I press it like halfway into a word, and I end up posting random letters because my thumbs are huge. This is my thumb. This is my hand. That is the fuck right there. That's the one right there, buddy. So yesterday was funny because I was working with a couple of young lads. One of them is the owner of the business we were hauling for. A couple of younger guys look like they're in their 20s, maybe early 30s, but quite young guys. Or maybe they're just in better shape than I was in my 30s. I met my wife in my 20s, and she said I was like a guy in my 60s. But she still loved me anyway, so we're married. This is the ring I got married with right here. Um, and I gotta say the world's full of a lot of crazy shit this morning, and it's just been a lot. What were you saying? Ouch to? Was that ouch to my thumb or my ring? Or just about how long? My wife and I this summer will be 20 years married. And we've been together for it'll be 13 or yeah, that's 13 3. Yeah, 23 years. 23 years we've been together. Some people like to joke about a long relationship, and you know what? Relationships aren't easy all the time. They're not all rom coms make it look like there's just this one time in your whole relationship when you get pissed off at each other for some sort of misunderstanding. Oh yeah, she said I look 60. She didn't say I don't know that if I looked 60. She said I acted like I was in my 60s. But to be fair, having worked at the point my wife and I met, I was in my late-ish 20s. I was maybe 27. Although my new rule is now that I'm in my late 40s, I say that I'm in my late 40s now for this 1 year, 49. Everything before that was early and mid 40s. Because I would not admit I was in my late 40s at 47 or 48, but at 27 I was in my late 20s. So 27 ish. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure we met in the late summer of that year. So I would have already turned 27. I think that's correct. Anyway, I guess I don't know if I'm doxing myself by giving it like what year I turned whatever, but I have never held back on what my birthday is because my birthday is one of the coolest days in the year, possibly the coolest day in the year, not just because I was born that day. So yeah, so no, my wife did not say I looked like I was in my 60s. I think a lot of people today would say I look like I'm maybe in my 70s or 80s. But I look pretty good for a guy in my 70s, maybe. Um, I was looking at a picture of myself, actually. My son and his friend, I was talking about trains. This is going to be one of those things where, like, my medication hasn't kicked in, and maybe it never will. My wife does not think my new medication is helping at all, but I'm working my way up to taking up to 7 pills a day, and which means I may end up taking more pills, and maybe more medicine will make me feel more better. I don't know if that's how it works, but you're not supposed to like go from zero to seven in one day, but I think I'm taking 3 or 4. I gotta check. I'd have to check and see what week I'm on because I don't pay attention to those little details. I pay attention to other details like are all my lights working? Is everything right? Do I have a relay that keeps on heating up and making weird noises? Do I have? And I had a second problem yesterday. Just blew my mind. Just before I got where I was going, I was less than a half hour drive from where I was going, and I realized that I needed to make a turn, but I realized I had lost air. So I knew the only thing I could do was start blasting my accelerator, go across, and pull over where I would be able to have a piece of shoulder to be on. And for those of you that don't know, up in Canada here, it's been snowing. We've had ice rain, we've had freezing rain, we've had fog, and all sorts of bullshit. Hey, good morning, Tori. And so I had to pull over, like, sort of into a snowbank and start hunting around for an air leak, which I could not find because vehicles were going by me on the road, and I was trying to look at it from not the side that the problem was on. I had a really weird problem. One of the securement pieces, what I was hauling was flexible, so I'm assuming that's what happened. One of the securement pieces had come loose in transit. I had multiple on, so there was no danger of the load coming off, but one of the securement pieces hit a little valve that was on the side of the trailer that I don't even know why it's there. My boss gave the trailer to me with that on there. I've never opened that valve. Anyway, it broke off a fitting. And I started losing air slowly, which was why I made it down the road a little bit. When I got to the back, I'm like, oh man, I've been dragging these brakes for probably like a kilometer. I could smell them; they were starting to warm up. But the thing is, like, if you have a small leak, you don't lose air right away, right? You need like a massive leak to like lose it, or like you blow one maxi, and then like everything else is spinning, so like the whole truck will drag the one maxi along. I had that happen one time. Ended up needing to get a new one put on. Anyway, that's a story for another day. I'll do talking about the mechanics of trucks and one day for those that are into it. It's good to see you, Tori. Welcome everyone to the show. Hey, hey Kelly, how are you? Welcome. You're lurking while resting. That's excellent. Well, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. So yeah, my thumbnail is the relay that kept on heating up and going crazy because of some weird wiring thing. So everything was wired where like the lights would come on, but some kind of a weird short was in there. So that is something. Hey, misinterpretations. Good to see you. I know that I know misinterpretation's name, and it's like it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. Because I know like I know Kelly's name is I mean she is the Detroit Atheist Queen, but also goes by a less formal name like Kelly, which is great. I feel like I know a lot of people's names, but in real life, I'm terrible with names. So I literally met the guys I was working with yesterday. I won't give their names directly, but like it's like the one guy I had his name and his number, and I phoned him to let him know the weather and some minor issues were slowing me down. And say, okay, I might be 10 minutes late getting to your site, and then he's like, oh, no problem, don't worry about it. Um, and then my they came up to me, and the other guy came and introduced himself to me, and I shook his hand and told him that I'm Al and all that kind of shit. My real name is Al. That's how I go in the real world, but I have a different surname than Trucker. But yeah, no. So I'm out there talking to him, and I forget his name like 5 minutes later. It's like what is that guy's name? Anyway, he reminded me of his name, and I remembered it for the rest of the day, which was good. So yeah, these guys were great. So we moved this stuff. It was an oversized load, and I had this brake problem. It was just fucking wild. And so that was my day yesterday. It was a long day, like, and it only cost me a half hour. All this fucking around. I added it all up, and I took the half hour off the bill for the customer because it was an hourly job. In the type of work we do, we usually either charge for the hour of work that we put in, like for every hour, or depending on the customer, we'll do it to the half or the 15-minute situation. Usually, we just round up to the nearest 15 minutes. So if I finished it like at hour 12 and 8 minutes, it would just be 12 and a quarter hours. And depending on the situation, I might round it down if I thought, there was shit we were doing. It was trucker because I drive trucks. Yes, I do drive. I drive a truck. So yeah, yesterday the Kenworth was good, but the trailer was not. So I'm doing a weird thing. Your last name, the builder. So funny story, Jason. I was a builder or a constructor for much of my career before I retired due to stress reasons to become a trucker. And I've told this story many, many times. I don't know why. I usually tell people this. If I'm working with a builder and they're having an issue, I'll say, "Hey, I used to do this. You might want to think about this situation." But usually I just say, "Hey, I remember when I don't usually give advice unless I think they're having a major problem." But I used to have my social media used to be Al the Builder, which I started because this my introduction to social media was a little bit before this, but I really didn't start joining up to things until my son was a toddler and he loved watching Bob the Builder. My daughter didn't mind it, but my son really was enthralled by all the little machines. He loved things with wheels, and he had like a major attraction. I thought he'd become a vehicle guy, but he's moved into dinosaurs and paleo everything. And his best friend loves trains, so and he got a train set and another train set that he gave to his friend, and I set up a little model railroad thing in the basement for them a couple of weeks ago, which was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing that. So your anxiety was too much for. See, Jason. This is funny, right? Like my anxiety is just general anxiety. Building and constructing things is second nature to me. Like I always liked building and working with my hands and doing stuff like that. My hands are fucked now. I can't, like, the arthritis in my hands, like I couldn't be a carpenter anymore. Um yeah, so what I can't read the screen. I can't read people's comments on the right side. I can only see some of them that name trucker because of truckers. Yeah, no, so you're right. Oh, Dennis the dentist. Yes. Yes. And now I don't know. I bet you could, but I don't know if you could make a show about a dentist. There was a show about a doctor kid. Uh, what was that show called? Doc McStuffins, maybe? I think there was a show called Doc McStuffins. It was about like a doctor of stuffed animals. But I don't know the dumb heart emoji thing that YouTube has. Oh no, well it is partly that, but it's also so I'm doing this on my phone because my son's computer, which I commandeer sometimes, no longer will let me use the webcam, and I'm like, I can't keep this awesomeness away from all of my fans. Um, I'm just joking. I don't actually think I have fans. I think I have fellow community members that want to talk about shit. So there was some stuff that was really bugging me in sort of the news yesterday, but I didn't listen to the live news yesterday for the day. I was listening to a couple of like sort of podcast type things, and I was listening to people talk about things that I've become interested in. A lot of it's just a distraction while I'm driving. One of the hilarious things that happened yesterday is I was in this little town, and this happens a lot because there's a lot of Mennonite communities, and the Mennonite communities don't. A lot of them don't use cell phones. A lot of them do, but a lot of them don't. And the ones that don't push to have telecommunications equipment around. So the companies that put in cell phone towers don't buy land and buy lease or whatever and put in a cell phone tower. And so I actually got to this town. This is not a town that's specifically a Mennonite town, but it probably has more Mennonites in it than the corners that I'm at. I might be the only Mennonite person at this Four Corners that I live at. I'm not sure. It's a little closer to bigger centers, and there's a bigger mix of people here. Well, my neighbor across the road had grown up in the area or just near town. Um, but yeah, no, things change. Things change faster the closer you are to bigger centers. Like just more people want to live there. More people doing that. But yeah, that stupid emoji. But the top of my phone, the little blacked out thing where it shows you like the charging and stuff, and what you're doing is there because I turned it into landscape mode. I rather watch on landscape than portrait, but I think the young folks are going the other way. So anyway, there was a lot of shitty news yesterday, and not that the news was reported badly, but just that the news was bad news. And there's been a lot of that recently. And I also was thinking, um, there's been a lot of back and forth in our community, and I don't want to talk about any of that, especially not anything specific. But I was thinking about this, and I was talking to another member of our community and privately, but what they said was not something that I think was private. I think it's something like really really, like, there's a great sort of intuition and understanding of what goes on with people in their mindset, and how when everything feels bad, the anxiety that people with like an anxiety disorder feel becomes sort of like a general situation that everyone feels, and so it'll elevate for people that are already predisposed to anxiety and stuff like myself. um it makes it even worse, and you feel like you live in this very stressful world, and I thought maybe today I would have a little chat about some of how that all comes together, because yesterday I was having these issues with my truck, and you know what, they suck, but I've been through issues with my truck. I've had my truck just die and there's nothing you can do. I've had I've had situations where they've literally towed me a different truck. Or I've had situations where, um, I remember one situation. The mechanic came, looked at my truck, so I couldn't figure out what was wrong, and the dispatcher had me try two or three different things. He was also previously a mechanic. This is not where I work now; at a different one. My truck just, and the mechanic came out and he said, "No, this is just something that happens after a certain amount of time doing this heavy work. These pieces just don't engage anymore, and yours is broken. It's going to be in the shop for a couple of days." So what they did was he drove me back to the yard. They gave me the keys to another driver's truck who was off for the week. That was a suitable enough truck to get the job done, and said, "Okay, you're going to drive Buddy's truck for a couple of days because he's on vacation, and it's the only truck we have that can do this job." And that was like I was moving a machine that really needed an 8 axle rig, and which is what four on the trailer, four on the tractor in this case. So it was a thing. They had to think about it, right? Because a lot of the other trucks they have are just regular 3 axle trucks, which is what I drive now, and I don't mind doing the slightly lighter work. It's still usually pretty heavy loads, but I don't mind doing it. It's not bad at all. Hey, Commander, good to see you. Good to see you. And so I was thinking, okay, like this stuff doesn't bug me that much, and even in construction. I never minded I never minded like when something just went wrong. And it's just like, oh, this doesn't work. The drawings say do this, and we've gotten to this point, and like we couldn't predict this, or we could have predicted it, but we would have had to run some sort of computer simulation or something. Maybe the engineer should do shit like that. I don't know, but you get a situation like they want to do this, and these two things can't actually function together. There's a physical impediment. We got to find a solution, and I love that. That was what I was good at. I would love doing shit like that because I just come and say, oh, we do this. We can meet these things, and we can't make the decision ourselves, but I'll take some pictures. I'll write up a little description. I'll phone the key parties, and we'll have a little meeting about it. And then I usually send the base information, some photos, and the relevant section, what page of the drawings it's on, and stuff like that. That was what I was good at. Is like solving a problem, anticipating a problem sometimes as well, right? And often that's what it is. It's like you're anticipating, okay, the next thing we got to do is this, but how the hell is that going to work? And there's stuff in construction where the general MO is like, well, you don't build this until you don't even make this piece until you know how this is going to work out. Like for instance, glass. Like glass has to be cut to within a 16th of an inch of its ending size, and we use generally imperial measure for stuff like that in Canadian construction. Although I think that's going to change. We're switching to metric, and that's like one of the underlying problems I think we have is American politics has become a very, very big stressor for a lot of people. I'm sure there's some people that are just looking at what's going on and they're just like, clapping their hands and cheering because they think all of that stuff is amazing. But I have a lot of trouble doing that. I have a lot of trouble clapping my hands and cheering when I see people being arrested for no good reason, people that are being attacked for just asserting their own rights, the right to protest what they don't like about their government, the right to speak out against it. There's a lot of pushback against that, and there's a lot of media coverage of it. That's stressful to me. To me, the idea that my neighbors in the states are not any longer living in a free democracy bothers me because I don't think a free democracy should be a democracy in the point where whoever like has 50 plus 1% of the vote on something gets to tell the other 49 or 50 less one, how they need to live their lives and what they should be doing and all that stuff. I think that's not what a democracy is meant to do. It's meant to put people that are legitimate um, leaders in a society in power, and those legitimate leaders should be leading on behalf of the people that put them in. And that doesn't seem to be what's happening there. And we could complain about Canadian politics for a long time too. Canadian politics are a little bit more boring, but a lot of what people don't like in Canadian politics is the politicians that are following in the footsteps of what American politics has become. We used to say our politics was a little more a little more civilized than in the U.S. There was a little bit less mudslinging, a little bit less of vote for me because I'm not that guy, which seems to be the biggest thing going in the U.S. right now. And yeah, no, and we're seeing, I see the comments here, and some of these things I probably shouldn't read out loud on air, but I appreciate the comments, and I'm not going to pull those comments down, um, because you're right. Some of the people acting in the American political sphere and in no, it's okay, it's okay. Um I don't disagree with your commentary. I just know some of these words are not they're not allowed on YouTube, or they don't like it. And I'm not trying necessarily to be monetized or anything. I don't want to be the kind of channel that can't get any traction whatsoever. But I'm not a big creator, and I'm not here to make money. I'm here to speak my mind on things. And a lot of what I've spoken my mind on, I've done sort of in jest, but some of this stuff just isn't funny. So I was watching Drewby, who I highly recommend. Drewby is a Canadian creator. He has this character called Smorsy, who is a double stacked marshmallow wearing well, what some people would call it depends on where you're from, but I'll call it the Sudbury dinner jacket, to use a bigger town and not identify smaller ones. But it's the red and black flannel jacket that most Canadians wear. I have one. I'm sure. I think I've been on stream in one. And I grabbed it out of my truck last night and used it to walk into the house because I wanted something to keep me just a little bit warmer than a wet T-shirt, because I was sweating yesterday. It was a long, long day, a lot of sweating, a lot of getting rained on, a lot of crawling around in slush and puddles, getting loaded and unloaded. So it was fucking brutal, but it was a good day. Despite all the trouble, it was a good day. Didn't bug me at all. And the same thing with construction. Didn't bug me at all to have a slowdown. What bugged me was when people were dealing with the stress of like the financial aspect of things, dealing with the politics of like trying to convince someone that everything's all right. That stressed me out. Having like a customer that's like they're a little bit miffed that they can't have this or that, or they can't have it exactly this way because it's physically impossible to do a certain thing. And so a lot of times what you're doing as a contractor, if it's a customer that's willing to throw money at the problem, you're like, well, we can solve this with maybe this kind of amount of money, and if you're interested in that, we'll work out the numbers for you. But if it's a customer that's really like budget sensitive, you got to say like your budgetary constraints are not going to allow this to happen because there's not enough time and material available to build something like this practically in your budget. It just doesn't work. And you're always very careful about how you word that, but basically, you just say, hey, if you don't want to overspend on this aspect of the project, let's find you a way that gets it done. And a lot of times that meant, sometimes it meant me working more or less for free, because I would often quote my cost right in. I would like say, okay, I'm going to spend 100 hours working on this project in the office to get it to happen. And so, if it turned into 105 hours, 5 hours would be for free, kind of thing, right? But I always wanted to do that extra stuff for people so that they would, more than anything, call me again or recommend me to someone else, which is exactly what happened my entire career. When my father and I were in it, when my other partner and I were in it, and still now my partner, I know he has existing clients that we've always had. I say we all the time from habit, but it's him. But he also gets, someone he's working with that I introduced him to is introducing him to someone else, and word of mouth spreads, right? And he's also had other opportunities that have led into other ones, and oftentimes it's knowing people that does that for you, and which is good and bad, right? Because everyone should get a fair chance at things, but who you know matters, and I think that's something I see in American politics. And when I look at what's going on with specifically, I think Trump, and what he's doing. Yesterday there was this thing. Drewby came on and said um, he was disgusted, and I was disgusted too. And he played the video because I hadn't seen this. I did. I think I listened to like one sort of news type program on my way back home, and then when I sat down, I turned on Drewby, and I'm like, oh, Drewby did a video. I wonder who he's taking the piss out of today, right? Because he does these little skits on there, and I do highly recommend his channel. But he's like, hey, this is serious, and he showed the video, and he said like, don't watch this video if you don't want to see it. But these ICE agents shot a woman. They shot a woman. She was driving like a Honda SUV. She was, it looked like trying to turn and drive away from them. I don't know if she was trying to come to a protest, leave a protest. The whole thing doesn't really matter to me. They were not in physical danger, and any one of them could have just backed right the fuck off, let her drive away. It was all on video. If she'd broken a law, her license plate was there. It looked like the ICE agents, at least one or two of them, were wearing some sort of body camera of some sort. They were covered in masks. They were masked men with a gun. And so I know this is not the type of thing that would get me or keep me monetized, but I started thinking. So one of our community members, who I haven't spoken to a lot recently, Look at the Trees, posted something about what a horrible, horrible thing this was, and I started typing a response to it, and then I got distracted by something. My kids were getting ready for school and all that kind of thing, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm just going to talk about that this morning because Drewby was talking about it, and I have to agree, it looked fucking awful. I hated what I was seeing. And I've heard a lot of terrible things about the ICE. Recruiting people, yeah, we would never share a beer with. Yeah, no, and even though I quit drinking, I totally know what you mean. Somebody you wouldn't want to sit down and have a chat with because, and I think we've all been in a situation where we chat to somebody, we're like, what the fuck is this guy thinking? Because you don't know what a person thinks by looking at them. I've often said, I'm a blue collar guy. I look like a blue collar guy. I'm a little rough around the edges. I look like the kind of guy that people expect to be rah rah, right wing, whatever, and just be into all that shit. And I'm not. I'm not. And I was talking to a colleague of mine in the patient advocacy space, and he was I was joking around about this, about how we come across, and he's an academic and certainly a much more put together person than I am. He does wear a beard, but he keeps it super trimmed and clean, and he shows up wearing like a business or business casual attire to all the things we go to, and and we were talking about this, and I was like, it's kind of funny, like people are expecting this, like people have so much of an idea in their head of what they're looking at, and you can't take at face value what you're looking at, because like I'm a perfect example of that. And he said, yeah, everyone is shocked when you open your mouth and start talking because they're expecting not to hear that. Um, and that's an interesting point. Although I've seen a lot of successful YouTubers actually who are defending the right ideas, in my opinion. And I don't mean the ideas of the right or the right wing. I mean like the right way to think about life, right? The verbiage in the recruitment as defending the homeland from foreign intruders. Yeah, and that's something that bugs me too. Now, so these guys are there. They don't like what this woman's doing, saying, whatever, and one of them pulls out a gun and just shoots her. Um, it was fucking awful. It was terrible to see. And there's been a lot of situations, and I became aware of these through the way YouTube algorithms work. It's I was interested in one specific court case, and now I start seeing all this stuff about law enforcement. That court case involved terrible treatment of law enforcement to someone else, but these ICE people, I don't know if this is true, but what I'm hearing is that a lot of them are just they're people that have a pulse and can hold a gun and wear the uniform. They're not super well trained, and they're being picked based on their opinion about other people. They're not there to enforce the law. They're not there to uphold the law. They're not there to honor the oath of what do you call there's a special sort of thing in the U.S. and I think it exists everywhere. But um, the idea, like one of the mottos of a lot of places, and I grew up in Toronto, where the motto is to serve and protect. Um, observe and report, I think, is the mall cop motto. But basically, the concept of police has changed over the years. And when I say police, I mean like anything where the government puts people out there in armor with some sort of weapon and tells them you keep the people that we govern for, keep them in line. Where you sort of have this one branch of government civil service that's there to rule over people, or that's the opinion they have of what they're there for. And I think that's an unfortunate way to look at it. And people in what I would call more legitimate law enforcement, or at least more vetted law enforcement, it's not as vetted as I thought. And I think that might be because in Canada, I think it's a little bit more of a thing where people will go to college or university to study, law enforcement, legal stuff. And I'm not saying they do a whole lot of, I don't think they do a whole lot of major education. I think a lot of it's on the job. I've worked with some police organizations in the past as a contractor, so I've met and talked to these folks. And most of the police officers I've dealt with, they're usually higher ranking career guys. By the time they're dealing with a construction project, they don't. It's weird. They don't put people in charge of things like that until they're at a pretty high level of rank, and they sort of get put into some sort of an administrative position for whatever reason. And I met and talked to a couple of these guys. They were nice guys. You can tell that, but there's a police mentality there. There's this idea that they're in charge of people, that they want to be in charge of people, and I've met a few over the years where I'm like, yeah, this guy should not be. And I guess it's females too that do this. Other women go into law enforcement and they think about this, and male law enforcement sort of fits this one stereotype of a personality, and women also have that personality, and so it's something weird because a lot of people are making videos about specifically trying to be mean to a certain type of women who's in law enforcement, and men who are in law enforcement are treated differently. That seems to exist in a lot of places. That's not fair or reasonable, but maybe there are reasons, maybe there are underlying social reasons that women in law enforcement do it differently than men. So that like the male and female are a little different from each other in society for a lot of reasons. We're raised that way. But I read an article, or not an article. I read like a blurb, and it's meant to inspire. Oh, there I am. Okay. Um, Look, hopefully I'm back. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, there's no sound. What about now, Commander? No, my phone didn't die. Somebody tried to call me. We're back. Okay, all right. Sorry about that. Yeah, some friend of mine tried to call me, but he calls me every once in a while. He's another trucker, and if he's bored, he'll call me and just say, "Hey, what's going on? Where the fuck are you?" And we'll talk about what part of the world we're in. And this time of year, we usually give each other tips about where the weather sucks, because we work in the same province and we very often are in the same area of the province. But sometimes I talk to him and I'm 20 minutes up the road, and other times I talk to him and I'm 20 hours up the road. But he doesn't leave his little bubble, because he works, he does a special job for a company. He's a commercial driver, but he moves their equipment around yard to yard, so he never leaves the area that the company has equipment in. And even when he goes to get new equipment from places, they have local sources, and by local I mean only a couple hours drive away. Yes, back. Okay, that's good to say. So this ice thing pissed me off a lot. I was looking at that. Um, these ice guys shot this woman. The thing I read, she had a 6-year-old daughter. I don't have a 6-year-old daughter anymore, but I did. I did at one point. My daughter is now in high school. My son's in high school. I remember when they were little, and because of Christmas and stuff, we had a lot of pictures. I had that stuff for, like, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. It's like, hey, look at 8 years ago, look at 10 years ago, look at 5 years ago, what you were up to. I saw my little kids there, and when I read that, I'm like, that is a heartbreaking thing. I don't know what this woman's situation was with any sort of a partner, but she had a child. That's all we need to know. There was at least one person in her life that cared about her and relied upon her as her mother, or their mother. I have no idea. I actually don't know the gender of the child, and it's not important. A 6-year-old kid doesn't have a mom anymore. That's pretty fucked up. And I didn't see a good reason for it. Um, I saw that the talking heads and the sycophants and stuff said, yeah, she was driving right at these people. They had to, like, she was barely moving. I think she was even stopped. I think she backed up like a couple of feet and tried to drive away from them because she was probably scared. They had a gun out before it wasn't a last minute thing. It looked pretty fucked up, and I know that the U.S. government that's in charge right now is probably going to defend that action instead of saying, "Hey, yeah, this." A good government would say, this person made a really bad decision. This person was a rogue. This person maybe wasn't vetted psychologically to be in this job, which is what I was getting at before. You get these attitudes that people have, and you're like, that person should not be a law enforcement officer because the main function should be for public safety, not for keeping people in line, which is the way a lot of them think about it. It's like they have to come down hard on people, and there's been a lot of chatter about that. I don't know a lot about it, so like I can't speak to it completely. But what I do know about is like having dealt with substance abuse in my earliest part of my life. I was an alcoholic. I guess I still am. I'm just not very good at it anymore. Um, but I quit drinking. I quit smoking. I still take a lot of caffeine in coffee, and I drink a few pops. Probably not good for me, but it's what I do, right? Um, yeah, using fear to keep people in line is terrorism. Yeah, and so it is. It's terrorizing the people, and this comes off as fascism. It comes off as something. So, and this is the point that I wanted to bring up because this is something I deal with in my work as a patient partner. I'm a patient partner with organizations where I give the opinions and life experiences of someone who's lived with disease for a big part of my life, and that's cared for people with disease. They one of my colleagues calls it lived and loved experience. And the loved experience is something that like I've dealt with directly head on and didn't even realize what an effect it had on me. Because as a young kid, I think I was about 12, and I had to look after my grandmother who was unwell. She was living with dementia, and I didn't realize what that really meant and entailed. And I'm getting a better sense of it as I talk to other people that do care for other people in their lives that live with disease. And there's people that live with the diseases I have that are less well. They're less well. Their illness is worse than my experience with my illness. But I've been at worse places with my illnesses, and I've needed care. I've needed care from my family, and thankfully, like I've recovered. But understanding that is important, and that the thing about that never goes away is there's this underlying stress on your mind and your body. It's a physical and mental stress, and the mind is part of the body. This is something I point out often. But that underlying stress when you're worried about someone in your life, or many, so it could be many, a lot of people my age deal with this. I'm 49. At this age, I lost my father. He was very ill for the latter part of his life. My mother is quite well, which is good, but her siblings have all experienced cancer. My father had cancer that we didn't even know he had till it took him. He had so many other issues that we couldn't find this out, or the doctors couldn't find this out. He'd been in to see them about all sorts of issues he had, but he had also had a stroke. He had a rough time. My dad had a really rough time in his latter part of life, and my mom did too. She had that stress. I could tell my mom had this huge amount of stress trying to look after my dad and get him to his appointments. And he, because of the stroke and vision problems and stuff that were part of that, he couldn't drive anymore. Which for him, because he'd been a professional driver and loved driving himself places and going places and doing his thing, he loved being independent, and that took a big piece of him away. And losing your independence is rough. Like, and when it's temporary, you can kind of joke around about it, but I have no idea whether he still thought it was temporary or not. It could have maybe been temporary for him, but he died before we ever got there. He didn't recover enough to get back. Um, Other people that I know, like my father-in-law, has been very sick and unable to drive, but he didn't lose his license until recently. Um, and he was able to like stop driving while he was sick and then go back to driving. Now he can't. He's going through that as well, and it's rough. So my wife is dealing with that now, where her father is unwell, um, and her stepfather is also suffering, and that's tough on her mom and tough on her too. It's tough on everybody. Um, it's a lot to deal with when you have this like underlying thing that you're dealing with all the time. And as a parent, I'm dealing with, and my wife is dealing with raising our kids and looking after them. And I have one child with special needs, my son, but that doesn't mean my daughter doesn't have needs that are special to her. It's a different type of thing. And my daughter also has to participate in helping her brother. And she's done that like sort of intuitively from early days. And she has an underlying stress, I've noticed. And I think that it's partly from just a learned behavior thing, but also there might be a genetic component to how our brains deal with this. And that's what's at home. But then when what's out in the world is so horrible, and you say to yourself, as hard as it is to look after the people in my life, as hard as it is to be unwell and fight this, to see people mowing people down with a gun for disagreeing with their take on things in a country that's supposed to be a free democracy, that kind of thing just, it adds. And you want to talk about a straw that broke the camel's back. That ain't a fucking straw. That's a fucking 5-ton block of steel being added to the load that we're all experiencing. Hey, Brainless, welcome. Yes, good afternoon to you. It is morning for me still, and I got to keep an eye on the time. I do have to get ready and go back out to work at some point, but my appointment is relatively late this morning. Um, so yeah, no, it's something I was thinking about, and so what I was talking about with someone. And I'm not gonna talk about people's names, but I was talking to another community member about the the level of underlying stress that just exists, even for someone who has only well, no physical or mental difficulty people in their life and themselves, even someone who's in the best possible health on all levels of the situation, even that person has this underlying stress of knowing that things in the world are just not going well. I don't think I can do that, can I? Okay, I was going to throw comments up on the stage, but I don't know how to do it, and maybe something I got to pay for. I think I'm still using StreamYard, which I don't think is the best one to use, but it's the one I'm most familiar with. And when I'm going to do this fast, I don't want to try and use a new thing. I have tried, I think EVMux. It's less intuitive to me, but it's not hard to use. I might work with it again. And I think one thing I have been thinking about doing is like I am definitely struggling to stay afloat financially, and I think everybody is, and that's one of the things about this whole situation. When when we suffer financially, like just trying to make ends meet, and I don't even want to complain about it because like I live in a nicer home. My son and my daughter are able to do some extracurricular activities. We are eating, but we're struggling to make every fucking payment on everything. Like we're just at the edge. Like I feel like, and I think a lot of people feel this. My wife and I've talked about this. Like we work damn hard at jobs that we've trained for. Like semi-educated people. My wife is really educated, actually. I'm not. I don't have a formal education, but I have an education in the things that I do. The things I've done for my life. They're not things with zero value. I've actually even thought like maybe there'd be interest in um, maybe I could do a show about construction and home renovations and shit like that. How to get stuff done. I think people are interested in that. I think people like renovating and maintaining their homes. And if somebody has an issue, I offer the help for free. And I've often joked to people that like you couldn't afford my services. Um, but the reason for that is like the value of my time is X number of dollars per hour. As someone who has like a 30-year career in construction management and knowledge about how things are put together, um, and I made a little bit more money um, in my um, in my career as a contractor, but it wasn't worth the stress of running the business. Blood pressure medications. Okay. Commander, that's great. Yeah. So you're less stressed. You have less blood pressure naturally. Um, yeah. Evil. Okay. Blood pressure would be, yeah. Well, yeah. And you were having, yeah. I'm not saying that's what your problem was, but yeah, we're talking about how blood pressure affects your commercial license. Yeah. I have to be in a certain kind of shape to be a commercial driver. And a lot of commercial drivers are guys like me that are living with overweight or obesity. My obesity's definitely been something that would push me a little bit to the edges of that. I haven't had any trouble maintaining my medical, thankfully, because I haven't had the problems that cause major issues. But I have like, I think twice I've had to get a special letter from the doctor indicating that underlying conditions I have are not going to affect me in a way that would make me unsafe behind the wheel or cause me to have um, a cardiac event, for instance, or like I have this issue with my lungs that it wouldn't cause me to lose consciousness and be unable to maintain my safety as a driver, right? And we work long hours, so like being tired, being unwell, having a major failure of a body system that would like knock you out, that would be a terrible thing to have in a commercial vehicle. It'd be bad in a car, but cars can smack into each other, and a lot of people walk away most of the time. When a truck smacks into a car, it's often really bad. Um, you see some hourly wages today where they're over $100 an hour. How can somebody pay for that? Well, I charged over $100 an hour for my time as a contractor. And I actually don't know what the rate is for what I do as a trucker. I don't make that much money, but I didn't take $100 home. That was what my company charged for it. Um, and the money went into the company, but I had to pay for a lot of things with that $100, and I think it might have been 115 an hour when I was doing it. So what I do now with a truck, trailer, everything like that, I've heard people talk about it. My old company, I drove a bigger trailer on a regular basis. We do that here a little bit. Haven't done a ton of it, but when I've done it, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy the challenge of doing that even heavier, bigger stuff. But that's just me. I like my attention to be on complicated things. It makes me happy. So when I'm just driving along, I work for stuff. I work driving, and depending on what's going on, if I'm just rolling down the road, I always have like a podcast on or something. I'm trying to learn something while I'm driving. Um, but yeah, you work for yourselves. Rates vary depending on the client. Yeah, so yeah, no, Jason, that's something that can depend. There's the old thing like it's $50 an hour if you just let me get the job done. It's $75 an hour if you watch, and it's $120 an hour if you help. Um, yeah, not being in the United States has lowered your blood. It's probably lowered my blood pressure too, Commander. Although with the way the weather's been, I did tell my boss that I'd happily run to Arizona, or New Mexico or something like that if they had a run down there. I don't even know if the weather's that great down there, but like kneeling down in the slush and stuff hasn't been fun. I've been yesterday. I got like out a big garbage. I have a few garbage bags in the truck just for throwing garbage in to collect through the week when I can't get to a truck stop. But also it's also because I put it down as a ground sheet and it is just miserable. Like we've been just hovering above freezing, and we've had like I don't know 8 inches of snow, or what would that be in centimeters? I don't know, like 12 centimeters of snow, something like that. I don't know. It's on the ground. Most of the places around here have a good amount of snow, and then we had the rain and the ice rain, freezing rain on top of it all. So there's a crust on it, and then the slightly warmer air comes in, and it's just fog. And every time you get on the ground, it's slush and it's full of salt and brine. It's just brutal, and that I don't mind. That's just working hard. Um, but I really think the mental state of having people struggling around the world, struggling with finances, and I think maybe this is what it is. I think this is exactly what's happening, and I used to think it was incompetence, and I think it's the plan. I think what's going on in politics is they're using psychology against us, and by taking away, and it's affecting us too. It's a worldwide effect because when a big power when a big power like the US is in charge, and they're working for capitalism first, they're working for corporations and CEOs first. And if that's not what they're doing on purpose, it's what the effect is. And so everyone, yeah, Jason saying make people desperate. So yeah, and when you're when you make a decent amount of money, but you can't afford to pay for food and mortgage or rent, and you can't afford to do anything with your kids that helps them get a better start in life, when you're like me wondering if there'll be enough money available to send the kids to post-secondary education, and healthcare in the States is particularly a vile setup. Here, and I was very sick for a number of months, not in 25, but in 24. I did have to get an emergency surgery last year, but it only cost me, I think, a week and a half of work. I think this is the thing. In Canada, you're not made bankrupt by your medical bills, but there's very few jobs where you're paid to not be there. And the amount of money you get from EI or UI or whatever they call it, wherever you are, going on the Phoque, it's such a small percentage of what you make that like it's gone before you see it. Like it's out, your money's almost all spent when you're making your regular good wage. When you're off and the government pays you this little bit of money from the fund you've paid into your entire working life, which at my point was like I started paying taxes and employment insurance and shit when I was 12 years old. I've been contributing to this society for a long ass time, so I don't feel the least bit bad about taking back out of it. I never wanted to. I was hoping I was propping other people up. And, I needed it. I needed it here. But yeah, being sick here is zero pay. Um, and you have to be sick enough. Oh, fuck. Okay. This stand is not working at all of a sudden, and I don't know what happened, but I guess the earth must have rotated underneath it. You know what, Brainless, that's amazing. And I think, like, if capitalists want to make a ton of money, that's great, but supporting the people that make it for them is important. I heard someone say that technology is going to change that like AI will take over the jobs of people, and that will set it all straight. But yeah, and Jason said desperate and yet complacent. And yeah, I agree. That is a thing that happens here. I'm gonna put that one up here. Desperate and yet complacent. And this is something we need to stop this from being the way we do shit. And it's hard to do it when you're in the system. You can't be working all day every day and change the way everything works without the power of all the people. And I think we already have a lot of people that really want to change things, that really want things to be different. And they understand what's going on. They see it going on. They see this vice turning so fucking slowly but surely, just squeezing every last little bit of juice out of them. And this is something that people have been complaining about for years, for centuries, for millennia. We've seen people revolt against regimes over and over and over again, and it always gets to the point where people have nothing. And if you take everything away from people and they've got nothing left to lose, there's nothing more dangerous than that. And it's amazing to me that we've learned these lessons over and over and over again, and we don't have a problem with resources. And there's been so many people posting over the memes and the sayings, the quotes, and it's one of the ones that I like, and I've seen it way too many times, but I like this one. Is like, our problem isn't that we can't satisfy the needs of the poor, is that we can't satisfy the greed of the rich. And even though I probably fit into the category of someone who's doing okay, I don't think it's unreasonable for me to want to have a decent home, children that are well fed and well educated. My wife and I are able to work for a living and put money in our bank account to save and invest money for our retirement, for our children's post-secondary education, which is something we don't get here covered by taxes. Is something we should look at doing differently. It is subsidized by taxes because universities get and colleges and stuff get money from government to help support programs. So if you live here, you get this. But you still have to pay tuition, you still have to pay for books, you still have to pay for lodging and food. And so if your kids go away, it's even more expensive. And you know what? I want my kids to do well. I want my kids to have options, and I want them to have an education, even just for the sake of knowing things. Because a basic education, when I look at what's happening and I can't believe this still exists. I was rolling that around in my head last night as I was driving home. I think it was the last thing I was thinking was, how the fuck are there still anybody in the flat Earth community? And they have their own set of things, and they're dealing with their shit, and a lot of it might be psychological. They want to know something special. I think. Oh, Commander, yeah, you're waiting for the permit. I'm assuming the permit to work or something. I'm not sure. Most of my phones have been taken away, so don't stress. Yeah, and Commander, I get that. I get that. And Commander and I have known each other for a while, and we've been on many streams together. We've spoken on Discord and stuff, and I know that Commander's a hardworking person who's been a commercial driver for good chunk of time, done a bunch of different stuff, and they work hard, and they feel, um, I think they felt trapped in the U.S., like in a situation that wasn't going to go well, and I support the idea that they moved to a safer place. It's almost a necessity for some people, and because that crushing, hey PC, good to see you. There's a crushing situation that occurs when people are under this kind of stress, right? No matter what the stress is, I think that's why people are so punchy. That was the point I started making like probably 25, 30 minutes ago. Is I was listing off all these things that make us stressed. Like I know what stresses me. I know what's making my life so fucking hard. You know, my life is just um very, very tight, right? Like it's like, how do I make it? How do I make it from A to B? How do I make it from when I wake up in the morning to get back home and have enough money in the bank to do the shit I want to do? It's tough, but I'm getting it done. I'm getting it done. And I am, so one of the things I brought this up, I'm thinking about maybe monetizing things just to like maybe pay for, maybe I could get some better equipment for streaming and maybe do a regular stream on some stuff, because I really like doing this. This is a great outlet for me. It's kind of like a hobby, and I guess I've done an hour of this now, and I don't even know what time it is. Can I find out? No, tell me what time it. My phone does not want me to know what time it is. Oh wait, no, I can see it on the. Yeah, it's like it's getting to be close to 10 o'clock. It's 20 to 10. So yeah, no, I'm thinking about it, Jason. I'm thinking like I think maybe I can just like post like PayPal or something, or maybe one of those coffee tip things where I can get a few bucks. If people were interested in donating, because I don't have extra money in my budget to put into stuff, but I want to do some of this stuff, and I don't know. I don't think it comes through. I've mentioned this a bunch of times about my voice. People think I should do voice acting and stuff, and people say I should be on a radio because I have this amazing voice. And honestly, I don't know if it comes through. I open my mouth in a public setting and start talking to people, and they're like, "Holy shit, your voice!" And I'm like, I've heard myself back on shows, and I've been like, "What the fuck is anybody talking about? I sound weird." And like, we all probably think our voice sounds weird because it comes out differently. I actually think my voice sounds pretty tired right now, but I do this public speaking stuff not because of my voice, but because of what I have to say about situations I've lived through in medicine, in healthcare. So I'm in these situations, right? I got a voice people listen to. Well, I mean, there's 9 people listening right now. So I've joked around about reading erotic fiction or stuff like that, and maybe I will. Maybe I will. I got a voice and things to say. I do a lot of thinking as a driver that's out. I'm out on my own a long period of time every day. Even though like during the day I work with people and I'm like, oh, we're gonna do this. We're gonna put this here. I need this here. I need to put a chain on this, or I need a strap here before you can do. Like that was one of the things yesterday. Like, don't put this on until I get a strap through here because we'll never get one fed through later. And there's all that practical shit. But once I'm driving, I'm like I'm paying attention to what's going on, and I'm thinking. I am thinking the vagina monologues is short. So I'm not familiar with the vagina monologues, but I mean we're far enough into the show that I could start doing all sorts of really really intense stuff, like all internal. You know, it's like the I don't think I should do anything about speculums, but like I'm sure there's like somewhere somebody's like seen one of those videos where they show like I can't remember what thing I saw it in, but I remember thinking this was a really neat thing. They had, and I think this is like before AI. This is like got to be like 15, 20 years ago. I saw this video of what happens when a woman's being impregnated, and so there's like this video where they have somehow there's a camera inside a woman's vaginal canal, I believe. They call it a canal. It's the love canal. And they actually show the male ejaculate has reached the female reproductive system. And then this is amazing to me. I had no idea this happens, but like there's some like the cervix opens and there's some sort of like a natural spasm that happens to help bring the semen into the reproductive system to aid in reproduction. And they had this all on camera. I'm like, there's got to be a way to make this sexy, but it's just you just see these pink fleshy parts like are interacting with some fluids that are a combination of the fluids that are already in there because it's not supposed to be a dry thing, and then you have like these parts that are like working really hard to make sure like a new human could be created, and then or in all organisms have developed this, and obviously the most successful parts of evolution have developed these things that help the system work, right? If it was just hoping for the best, I think about like I think when fish mate, like they don't there is not like when fish mate they don't actually like go genital to genital. Like one of them uses their reproductive system to throw eggs out on the ground, and the other one uses their reproductive system to fertilize the eggs outside of the fish, I think. Um and it's like, is the opening for Look Who's Talking? Yeah, I think, yeah, you're right. I think Look Who's Talking does have some of that, like, that sort of clinical video of, like, the reproductive system. But I mean, everybody wants to think about, like, some sort of glistening labia, or maybe you're not supposed to be that clinical, right? You're supposed to use, like, euphemistic language. Um, I think it's in like the Naked Gun. They put this book and they talk about the thrusting his purple-headed warrior into her quivering love pudding. I think that would be funny, and I think that it's good to move on to conversations like this. We're just talking about fun stuff and not the underlying stress we're all under and how people are. I think people are so radiant love pudding, radiant love pudding. Wow. Um, I guess it could be. See, and I've always found I've heard people say pudding before, and I'm like, I don't know, like pudding just doesn't seem right. Like, um, but I mean, it works for some, right? And maybe I should start writing my own erotic fiction, and I'll use the euphemisms I like. I'll do the ones that make sense to me. But yeah, I guess I've never thought of the female reproductive system or any part thereof to be like pudding. But yeah, I don't know. It probably depends on what kind of pudding you're talking about. I think pudding means dessert in like the UK, maybe. I might be wrong, but I think like English people say pudding for like any kind of thing they have for dessert after supper or whatever. So, that's a different scenario again, right? Um, so yeah, maybe that is the way to make money. If I can't sell my body, I can sell my description of other people's bodies doing unspeakable things to each other in the dark, or in the light. Oh, hey farmer, good to see you. Good to see you. Let's farm. I haven't seen you in a couple of days, but I did see you a couple of days ago. Um, well, I started out talking about sort of wanting to like deal with what the fuck's going on out there and how fucked up things are, and things are fucked up in the general world. They're fucked up. They're fucked up all over the place, right? And I don't want to contribute to things being fucked up. I want to contribute to things getting better. I want to contribute to a world where people have a lot of respect for each other and the way people are coming at life, and also respect the fact people need a bit of time to blow off some steam. People need to like say what they think about things. Like I was blowing off some steam and talking about how fucked up I thought that situation was in oh fuck, Minnesota. It was in Minnesota, I'm quite certain. And Minnesota is like a border state with us, right? Like it's a place. I'm trying to remember if I've actually been to Minnesota or not. It all runs together after a while. Man, I don't do a lot of over border trucking, so it's not like I've been to every state as a trucker. It's places usually I've been to visit as a because I think I've only commercially trucked in like Indiana, Michigan, New York, uh, maybe Indiana. Yeah, Indiana. Yeah, I haven't been to a lot of states commercially. I've been to a ton of them for fun. Any thoughts on Greenland? Well, I said this the other day. I was in the Bin network, and I said if they attack Greenland, I'll go up there and defend Greenland on their behalf. I don't know how long of a fucking drive it is, but I probably can't afford the diesel, but I'll fucking go. Because you know what? Threatening sovereign nations isn't fucking cool. It's not like I'm not fucking. Thanks, PC, for yeah, lick and describe. Um, I should get back. I do not. I did. We are not to be trusted. Yeah. Well, I don't know who the we is. Other than I think you mean the U.S. PC, and yeah, I know. I think that's right. I think. I absolutely do think that we have a situation where the U.S. government's gone like off the fucking rails, and I actually don't think it's a derailment. I think they built a spur line, and they want this to go somewhere. They're bringing the train there on purpose, and yeah, 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 yeah. No, the U.S. has been treating um, the world as their sort of political playground, if you will, and their military playground for a long time. And it's easy to say, well, there are friends, we're treaty partners with them and stuff. And in every other iteration of the U.S. government, except the ones under this one and the one before under Trump, I felt like, yeah, I think the U.S. is, they think they're hot shit. They think they run the whole fucking world, and they think their military is the biggest and the best. And I guess that might be true, that you invest more of your money into more ways to kill people than anyone else on Earth. Um, that doesn't really make it great. Um, and I get, but it's part of the whole attitude, and it comes back to this whole thing. It's no longer no, and no, and brainless. I agree. I agree. Like right now, I do not think we are in a situation where politically we consider the U.S. an ally. The thing is, like, I know so many Americans that I consider to be wonderful people. Right now, like, we've had conversations about it. Like, Dr. Tapp and I are really good friends. I think we've referred to each other as our best friends, and we really enjoy talking to one another. And I get a lot of my best getting shit off my chest talking to him privately about shit. And I won't go into all of that, but I really appreciate that, and I think he bounces some shit off of me too, and we have a great friendship in that regard. But he's an American, and I don't hold that against him. It's like, where you're from doesn't matter. And that's maybe the problem, is like, it only matters when you're a block of people with a certain mentality that isn't coming from the people. It's coming from a bunch of bastards that are trying to do shit. And one of the clips that played in my feed this morning while I was drinking my coffee was Stephen Miller being a fucking baby about everything, and that's part of it. It's part of it, right? And I think I want to put this up on screen, partly so I can read it because I'm old. Technically, an American, don't see my country as an ally or respect its authority. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if that went up or not, but I was able to read it better. Um, Consumer culture in the back, militant racist on the front, and yeah, and see, that's the thing that's really, it's really tough to deal with, and it makes me want to not talk about that. And I have absolutely been trying to escape from many people's channels, not because what they're saying isn't awesome, but because I haven't had the mental and emotional bandwidth to deal with it. There's a lot of stuff I've loved engaging with over the years, and creators that I've enjoyed over the years, and I still absolutely support them. I think they're wonderful. Um, Tori's saying something I got to read in a second here, but I want to finish a thought, which is hard for me to do. At least now I'm diagnosed with ADHD, so we know why my brain is like this. Um, but I think that what this really comes down to is uh, the U.S. military being controlled by someone like Trump and the sycophants he has in place, and the fact that they're willing to spin anything into their fucking way of doing it. They don't hold anybody on their side to account for fuck all, and they have so many reasons to recall this president and don't do fuck all about it because they're afraid of him. If you're afraid to hold the highest office in your land to account, the person, the flesh and blood person that holds the office to account for not doing it right, you're not doing anything right. That is no longer democracy. That is a dictatorship, and that is fucked up. And I see people. Sorry about my hand. I know it's fucking ugly. Looking back 250 years, and we have always been this evil. Yeah, they also said that if the U.S. went after Greenland, NATO would crack down the U.S. Yeah, and I hope we fucking do, and I hope it doesn't happen. I hope that better heads, cooler heads, and thinking people take control of what's going on. It's been kind of like stripped out and taken away, and we've made it to a bad place in time. We've made it to a bad place in the world where things are really shitty. And this is kind of what I started the whole thing about. And I'm gonna tie this back to like my own personal experience, and I'm gonna go on a little rant. I do think I should probably talk about. I think it'd be a whole lot more fun. I was thinking about this. I was thinking I would probably like get kicked off of YouTube permanently if I actually described like some sort of sex act in any long form on YouTube. I think I'd have to do that in some other format. Joking around about it might even be a problem, but I was thinking about it would be a whole lot more fun if I just started saying some very lurid shit. And people might really enjoy it or they might not. Maybe I'm the last person anybody wants to hear describing a magical sexual experience between two lovers. But I would rather talk about something like that, something that inspires, something most of us experience this idea of love and sexual desire and stuff, and that would be wonderful. I would love to have a situation where we get to talk about those wonderful parts of being a human, but we have reached a point where we can't ignore what's going on. We are constantly inundated with messages that some of them are meant to inspire us, but a lot of it is meant to put us in a state of despair. It's all bad news all the time. People are telling us that there's not enough resources. We can't have them. We can't have access to them. And one of the things that I've heard people say, and people say this is way too fucking ridiculous of a statement, but the idea that you could have something like a universal basic income for everyone, where everyone on Earth, not just people in one country or another, but this seems to happen very much on a political one-off situation. It never happens on a worldwide level. But every human born on this earth has the right to profit from its riches. And when I say riches, I don't mean the rich people. I mean the value that is in the world's resources. I've heard people say that we have a birthright to that as citizens of the world, as humans who were born on Earth. And I think this is something we really need to have a look at. And I see a lot of people who are in the U. And these are people I know that are in the U.S. I think he's won by a long shot already. You can take both houses. If we're going the level of corruption, okay. The 1 mile long shot. I think this is the competition to be the worst human that's ever held public office in the U.S. I'm not sure. Jackson had the Trail of Tears. I should keep him in. Yeah. So I guess it sounds like rhetoric to compare someone who's in office to that, and so I'm going to talk from my personal experience with. People are feeling really forlorn. People are feeling abandoned, and I think what it also creates where like people have a situation Anybody could have a situation with someone who they like and respect and disagree with them. And I think what's happening, and this is part of what I've heard people saying, is this underlying stress that we live under is causing people to be way too snippy and way too quick to judgment and way too dismissive of other people's opinions because they're so used to like hearing just absolute shit from people. And there's people who are taking the piss and trolling and saying shit just to get people uh, raging about stuff. The rage bait shit, right? So this is not rage bait, right? This is this is Al saying what he thinks about life in general. This is not about any specific situation because there's been so many times where I've seen people just talking past each other and just I think it comes from this underlying stress. So this is a time of year. I talked about this the last time I streamed, which was maybe a week ago or so. I'm not sure, and I do need to pay attention to the time. So yes, in 15 minutes I need to wrap this up. So I'm gonna do this loquacious as I am. I'm gonna wrap this up and say, I was born on this earth into a relatively small body. I think I weighed under 7 pounds when I was born, and at some point in my life, around puberty, my weight became the biggest concern I had in my life. Uh, my parents, at least one teacher I can think of when I was a young man, before I left elementary school, told me that my body was not right and needed to be fixed, or I would live a terrible life dealing with this. The teacher that said that is someone who I never really thought much of it at the time, but looking back, is someone who probably lived in a larger body, probably not to the level of living with obesity, but probably someone who struggled with their weight. Um, and so this is the stress that I've lived with my entire life. And so what the stress is, and this is something I'm working on something. I'm working on something, writing an article. I had it all written out a whole year ago, and I'm talking to a couple of friends about it. The idea that men don't participate in the discussion about weight management, weight loss, dealing with living with obesity, treating it as a disease, treating it as a treatable disease, and the other comorbidities that go with it, of which there are more than 200, and I think I've got like 13 of them personally. I'm not going to list them off. I'm just going to say this is the underlying thing. And so this is my personal experiences. This is like my to borrow a quote from the Three Amigos. This is my El Guapo. And El Guapo was the villain in the movie The Three Amigos, who was running this gang that was making everybody's life miserable. And I think we all have an El Guapo, and that was I think Steve Martin was the character that said that line. Um, Steve Martin, pretty funny guy, excellent banjo player. He might be the funniest accidental comedian of the entire banjo playing community, but I'm not sure. But I'm glad that banjo player got out there and started doing a little bit of comedy too, because he's got a secondary talent. So what happens when you use the wrong phone stand is stupid shit like that. My ceiling has been displayed many times, and I'm in my kitchen where there might be stains on the ceiling. I'm not sure. We did try to clean them, but I know there was a time when there was an incident. There was a cranberry juice incident. Addiction is a horrible disease. Yes, addiction is. Addiction is a disease. And so um and all diseases are horrible. So obesity, and I think Farmer might have brought that up for because I did mention being an alcoholic, but I think he also might have brought it up because a lot of people that live with obesity also live with food addiction. And I've looked into that. That does not really seem to be a problem that I've dealt with. Not in the way, like, not my understanding of what I've read about food addiction as a problem, but I do think I've had some aspects of that affect my life. I think my problem with food intake and energy expenditure has been a little bit more nuanced than that. But I'm not going to get into the details of my struggle with obesity. I'm going to get into my struggle with um, this is my struggle with my body. And so the article I'm working on writing is about from a male perspective because I've mentioned this many times before. In reality, almost no men show up. They have to curate groups of people to come to these things, and I'm invited to more of them than I should be because I'm one of the only men that'll get up and speak. They can take their pick of dozens of women that will come to a conference, and they have like half a dozen men they can count on. And because we all work and stuff, we're not always available. Now there's more than that, and I'm trying to get the word out. And what I'm even trying to get the idea into people's minds that um, what your gender is doesn't really matter to a disease, other than there might be some technical differences, and there's certain things like I don't think that someone born with a male reproductive system is likely to get cervical cancer. Like that I understand, and vice versa with, like, say, testicular cancer. Those are things that are different, and there are also things about physiology that change. But the mind of a person. All right, see you later, PC. Thanks for coming by. I'm glad you dropped in to say hello. Um, and we'll see you out there. And thank you for posting. I did see you posted a link to one of my conference speeches, and I appreciate that too. Thank you. Um, and I also I've started a Substack, so some of my writings will be there, and this article will end up being there. And I don't know how to share my Substack, but maybe I'll start like linking it in my YouTube bio or something. I don't know if any of it's good. People usually say they enjoy my writing, and so, but I'm gonna get into this idea about obesity and what it does to your brain. So, and I found these pictures. I was looking through a picture book because I was looking for some pictures of some trains and stuff to show to my son. Some pictures I took of trains back when I was in my very early 20s. I did a trip out west and I took some pictures of different things I thought were neat, like how long and big the trains and the train yards are out west, where in Ontario, a lot of them are sort of hidden in between buildings and stuff because it's all built up. Um, and in the prairies, it's just right beside the highway, and you just see these like miles and miles of trains. It's just wild. Anyway, because he's getting into trains a little bit, and his best friend is already like a really train freak. I'm like getting at this book, and I'm flipping through these pictures. There's just pictures of me in there because my friends were with me. They took pictures, and they gave those pictures to me. And yet, yes, Tori, breast cancer is becoming more reported in men, and there's gynecomastia or something. I can't remember. Anyway, there's a thing where males, especially males living with obesity, are more prone to get this, where they develop a breast-like tissue, and not on purpose. This is not. I know that there's hormonal therapies that someone who wants their needs to transition to a female presenting form in the trans community. I don't know my terms very well here, and I mean no offense to anyone in the trans community. I hope this is not coming out like that because I don't fully understand this. But I know like hormone therapies will help breast tissue develop in a trans woman. Say, I hope I'm saying that right. But there's also there are a lot of hormonal problems with when you get into like what happens with the male and female body in an obese state. So the hormone regulation is off, and that causes a lot of like the rapid weight gain. A lot of people living with obesity don't eat huge amounts of food, or if they did at one point in their life, they switch over to something. They switch over to something else, and they just have they have a whole different thing happening. Um, and so from a young age, I had people telling me my body was wrong, and all the bodies that I saw that were right, male and female, because this is something like they're like, well, young girls are presented with all these images of these super slim models and told to accomplish that. Well, it probably escaped some people's attention because men are just supposed to not care, right? We're not supposed to care about our bodies. We're not supposed to care about anything. We're supposed to make money, kill animals, and beat each other up, right? That's all we are, right? And I'm a hunter and a fisherman. I enjoy that part of my life. Oh, Ember, yes, gynecomastia. That's the word I'm looking for. Umbrella term for breast development in people with a man identity. Okay, thank you, Ember. That was exactly what I needed. Is someone with the brains of Ember. She knows her stuff, and yeah. So, gynecomastia. That's it. Great to see you, Ember. Thanks for coming by. I hope. I feel like maybe I'm on when you're on, and probably like taking you away from a show or preparing for a show, and I don't want to do that. I happen to be off this morning, and I don't have to start for another like hour, and so that gives me a chance to get ahead today. But I just saw my boss sent me a message, so I'm gonna have to stop anyway. But what I want to talk about with this problem of body image that men and women both experience, and I think there could be um, something in the psyche that we want to fit and conform and fit into who we are. And what I will say is, it's so much. Yeah, that's right, Ember. Yeah, you're on 53 minutes. Okay, well, at that point, I'm going to be firing up the rig and starting to go to my next run. So hopefully, I'll have a chance to throw your show on and listen. Um, and if you're not already listening to Ember, does some amazing shows about a lot of different topics. And I noticed in the last couple of weeks, there's been like a lot of shows about interesting things that you just maybe never thought about. The one I was listening to the other day, I can't remember what day it was, but it was earlier this week. I guess today's like what, Thursday? Yeah, earlier this week there was one about what goes on in the brain with bacteria in the brain that's needed, and ones that aren't good. That's really interesting stuff. And I'm talking about what goes on in the brain is like when you get a certain type of messaging over and over again. So what one of the things I hear a lot is how hard it is for a woman to live in a larger body, and how much harder it is than for men. And that's because men are given more of a pass. Well, what I've noticed is men, um, men, men with a lot of money maybe get a pass to a certain point, but that says something pretty terrible about certain women in our society. But I think we're attracted to all sorts of different things in each other, and maybe it's our job, and our value comes from how attractive we are to other people. Um, and I've never thought of myself as an attractive person. I still don't. I don't today. I don't find myself attractive. I don't like myself. I don't love myself. These are things I'm working on changing about myself. But I realize like I've had a constant message of um, you need to lose weight. I've heard it from friends, family, and strangers my whole life. And I look into what goes on in the brain, and I'm no expert in it. I'm a truck driver, but when I have heard that if you keep getting a certain type of messaging, it'll start to take hold in your brain. And so my emotional feeling about myself is you're wrong. You don't belong here. You don't fit in, and this world was not made for you. And that's some of the stuff I've written about is not fitting in. And so some of it's very, very obvious. Like when you get to a place and sit down in a chair and you don't fit in the fucking chair, that's pretty fucking obvious. But this idea that like you shouldn't live your life until you lose weight, and that this is a time of year where that messaging like ramps up big time, because right after Christmas into January into February, gyms and these things. I did a little rant about this the other day. I even wrote something down, and I did a conversation starter about like New Year's resolutions and how many of them are about losing weight, for people that care about that. And I don't really necessarily care about what my mass on the scale is, but I do care very greatly about my body composition is and how I look. And I shouldn't, because I'm not really a good looking person. I don't really have a lot to offer. My wife loves me for whatever reason, and I think my wife loves me for who I am. despite my flesh. And I think my kids love me because I'm their dad, and they know I love them and care about them and want to look after them and give them the best possible start in life. And I annoy the fuck out of my family because they say I lecture them because they bring up a topic and I like start going on about it because it's something I'm interested in or find amazing, and they shut me down and say, "Dad, you're lecturing us, and please stop." And I should, but I can't. But living in this large body has like really, really sucked. It sucked for my whole life, and I now weigh. I just checked myself on the scale. I've lost a little bit more weight since like I guess November when I was off for my surgery. No, that was October. I was off for a week for my emergency surgery, and it fucking sucked. And I couldn't quite figure out what the fuck was going on. Anyway, um, here's where I'm at. It really sucks whether you're male, female, trans. It doesn't matter. That like, and I'm those aren't the three genders. I'm just for anybody who's on a gender spectrum. Maybe we all are, but I definitely tend pretty heavily towards the male end of the spectrum, if that's the way it works. Um, I don't feel comfortable in my body. I don't feel like I'm an attractive person. I don't feel like I'm very worthwhile as a person because I've been told so many times that what's wrong with me is my weight. At one time in my life, I weighed 405 pounds, and I have lost. I'm back. I've lost 80 pounds, and I can't say I kept it off because I've been up and down. I've been up and down in a range of 5 to 10 pounds. But I think I was about 325, right? So if I do the math on that, 75, this is 80 pounds down. Yeah, 325 make me 80 pounds down. And I don't know that I'm on a downward trajectory. I've changed up my medication recently. Some of that has improved my attitude to things and my behavior. But I said I'd wrap this up in 15 minutes, and that will be in 2 more minutes here. So in the 2 minutes that I have, I'm going to say that the stress of not having anything worthwhile going on in my life in terms of who I am, because my body gets in the way of me recognizing everything in my life that's fucking awesome, is brutal. And I take medication to deal with depression and anxiety. It's the same medication does both. And I take medication to make sure my blood pressure's in check, to make sure that my diabetes is in check. I take medication to make sure that my coronary arteries are not clogged up, that they don't get worse than they ever were. And yeah, and it's fucking brutal. I take so many medicines, it's just not funny. And a lot of these things are correlated with obesity. And what comes first? I don't know. We have talked about, and we're very lucky at Obesity Canada. Dr. Sanjeev Sakwahan is our is he the chief medical officer or something like that? I can't remember. He's a psychiatrist and a bariatric medicine specialist. He works with an organization called CAMH. I can't remember what title he has there, but he's an in charge person there, and he's an in charge person with Obesity Canada. And so I'm really glad we have someone dealing with the mental health aspect of it, like boots on the ground with a real background in it, because all I know is it feels like shit. And that is an underlying current of stress that I've had my whole life. And something that really, really like sort of has grabbed hold of me and caused me issues. And it fucking hurts. Hey, Commander, are you back again? You said hello. Or you're saying hello to someone specific, I'm not sure. Jason said something important. So I'm gonna put this on here. Remember to laugh. And then I'll put that back. I hope that worked. I don't know if it did. Did you hear Sweden has been working on microbes to clear artery plaque? I have not heard of that, Ember, but that sounds really exciting. Um, and as you say, it's exciting stuff. I can put this up here. Here, this is exciting because one of the one of the conditions that I have is a very minor blockage of one of my coronary arteries, and it is it is not a big deal. Apparently, I was told they checked for it because of some other symptoms I was having at the time. They checked me out. So your heart's actually really good, and the amount of blockage you have is totally typical. You're just diagnosed with something because you got scanned for it. And they said like probably 7 out of 10 men my age would have a very similar profile if they put them on the same machine. They just don't bother. Um, that's not good to know. That's what that means is we're living in a, yeah, that is why we do live streams and shit. Yeah. Azithromycin for cholesterol. Yes, I also take azithromycin. And you're allergic to statins. Yes. I have had trouble with statins. I had a lot of pain and fatigue when I took one or two of them. I had to change a couple of different ones. Jonesing for Cards Against Humanity. You know what? If I get more time off, I might do that. And I think Slim was doing a lot of shows like that, and so is and Commander does stuff like that. Making fun of Karens and alcohol and coughs at the DSA. Okay, that sounds good. Deep State Annex is another good place to get that. I don't know if Slim's been doing any streaming right now. I think he's got other stuff going on in his life, but I know he was doing that on a regular basis, right? Is there a Discord version of it? We Farmer and Jason. Yeah, you know what? I'd host that. I'd definitely host that, and I love writing up the cards. I do think I have a sense of humor. My family will tell you that I'm nothing but horrible dad jokes, and yeah, I am a horrible dad. Um, I do like to laugh. I do like to laugh, and I maybe the funniest thing I could possibly do would be to maybe I will write some terrible erotic fiction and I will read it out in the sexiest, sultriest voice I can come up with and see what happens. And Saturday at Dave's, that's right, that's right. Slim is over at Dave's sometimes. And Saturday nights are the night when I'm least able to communicate with people most of the time. Oh, there's free online cards. And you know what, I'll write my own cards. That's a great idea. So I'm gonna end the show on this. Um, Lick and describe the stream if you can, and if you can, if you're into sexual pleasure and gratification, and you have a partner, lick and describe them. Just don't tell us about it. Foot of Snow for community. Yeah, you can add cards on that. Okay, great. Thank you, Brainless. I'm gonna take note of that. And you know what I'm gonna do now? I'm gonna say goodbye because I'm over time, and I've got some shit I got to do. What I'd like to do though is thank everyone for coming by. Um, I really enjoy having a chance to just say what I want to say, rant a little bit. With all this shitty stuff that's happening in the world, I think we have a responsibility to be concerned about the things that are going on in our world, but we also have a responsibility to look after each other in a good way. So thank you. Thanks everybody for coming. Let's be as kind and understanding to each other as we possibly can. And I love seeing all of you here. Thank you so much. Bye bye.